I'd like to start off by giving you guys a question. That way I don't have to do any thinking at all. And the question is a very simple one. Imagine the following case. There are two people who have gotten together and they have cooked up a story about good Mr. Shapiro down the road. And they have cooked up a story that good Mr. Shapiro was beating up poor Mr. Frankel. Now, Mr. Frankel, is going to go along with the story as well, but in Judaism we need two witnesses, not only one victim. So, Mr. Frankel brings the complaint. The two witnesses say, oh yes, we saw Mr. Shapiro thrashing poor Mr. Frankel, and throw the book at him, punish him. Well, we know they're lying. And eventually we find out that they're lying. What should their punishment be? They're just lying, right? Liars. Lying is its own crime, right? Lying gets its own punishment? Not so fast in Judaism. You see, in Judaism, especially in this week's Torah portion of Shoftim, we have a concept known as Edim Zomamim. And these are malicious witnesses, you will, or colluding witnesses. Not wrong, right? Not they were mistaken, or they thought it was Mr. Shapiro, but in fact it was somebody else entirely, and they were wearing a wig. No. We're not talking about error. We're talking about a scheme. We're talking about in this case, small-scale conspiracy. And Judaism says that there is a very special punishment for these types of witnesses. It is proportional. Specifically, it is precisely proportional to whatever would have happened to the victim of their scheme. So, if they are scheming against Mr. Shapiro, saying that he was involved in this assault, then whatever the penalty would have been for the assault, whatever would have been assessed as a fine, whether or not he would have been flogged by the court, whatever it might have been, that happens to them instead. Now, if they'd been lying about Mr. Shapiro owing Mr. Frankel $50, then they would have to pay $50 as fines, because it would be proportional to the type of lie. The bigger the lie, the more harm that the lie would have done to the victim of the lie in the court case, the more penalty that happens to them. Up to and including capital punishment. If you lie in a case where somebody's life is on the line, then you're going to be executed when it is discovered that you are colluding in order to have that other person be executed. Not, oh, you perjured yourself and a slap on the wrist, not a monetary fine. Whatever was going to happen to the victim of your scheme happens to you instead. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But think about it from a different point of view, because maybe it doesn't make so much sense. Does that mean that the person who lied about hitting someone is guilty of the same crime as hitting someone? I mean, I think all of us would say, at least intuitively, before we get into too many of the details, that if I see Mr. Shapiro and knew Mr. Shapiro hit Mr. Frankel, that's worse than seeing a different person, Mr. Cohen, lie about hitting Mr. Frankel. Right? I mean, who would you rather have your neighbor? The guy that's actually punching someone, or the guy who's lying about punching someone? We wouldn't want either, but it doesn't quite feel equal, does it, intuitively?
Well, you have to remember that the voice is as powerful as the fist. And if you are voicing a lie, it's as harsh as if you're hitting the person, because of how the person is affected by it.
The voice can be as powerful as the fist, and it will. You have to imagine what a damage is being done by this. And in this particular case, the exact same amount of damage is being done as though the deed itself were being done. And the Torah believes that that is why this is the appropriate punishment. That if you had the punishment to be $10 per lie, $100 per lie, a year in jail per lie, that for some lies that might be a little bit too much of a penalty. If I was only lying about $5 or something, then why should I go to jail for a year? And for other lies where somebody's life was on the line, it may not be enough of a penalty to actually deter a person from rolling the dice. Maybe I won't get caught, and maybe that person will be executed on my testimony, and then I've gotten rid of him. Judaism says no. If you plan to subvert the entire foundation of Jewish law, which is based upon testimony, then you have to be exposed to the entire category of risk that comes with Jewish law. If you want to undermine the law, then the law is going to have to punish you appropriate to how badly you were trying to harm another person using the law as your weapon. It is a very different way of looking at cases of perjury and lie. We tend to almost slough off the issues of lying. We treat it very casually in many of our regular conversations, even when put into a position where someone clearly wants to get to the bottom of something. We will often embellish or overstate our certainty with something. How many of us are guilty of giving a categorical answer when in the back of our mind, part of us is saying, well, maybe, but we don't want to sound like we are unsure, and so we say it with confidence, which is deceiving the other person. How many of us might be more than willing to click that forward retweet like button on an article or a meme that we think summarizes our view on a particular subject without doing 2 minutes of double checking that what is being passed around is an honest opinion, is a true opinion. But we agree with it, therefore we find ourselves saying, well, I bet it's true, or it's probably true, or I wouldn't be surprised if this was true. And it's the kind of thing those people would do anyway, so I might as well share it because it's as good as true. Is there any difference then if someone acts upon the information that you have given and acts in a way that leads to some harmful cause to someone else? Is there a difference then in what they do and what you did by sharing the information? If you act as a false witness, if you act as a colluding witness with others to raise ire, anger, or some other form of motivation that will eventually convince somebody to behave in an illegal fashion, can you say that your hands are clean? Can you say that you were not involved in the conspiracy, it was only those who acted in such a way?
Well, even if it's true, even when it's true, it you know, to retweet or to add to it just because it's true doesn't mean that you need to stir up the pot.
And there is an entirely another conversation that we can have. Indeed, I've even got a full video on that on YouTube about the issue of Lashon Hara. Of even when there are things that are true, we have to be very clear when and when we should not be spreading that and under what circumstances. And whether we are doing so with an aim to resolve an issue, to bring to closure for the good of the individual under question or others around them or the community, or whether we're doing it to stir the pot, whether we're doing it as an act of anger and antagonism as opposed to an act of trying to repair. Judaism has a lot to say about what we say, which is, I think, one of the reasons why some people are afraid of studying too deeply, because we learn that oftentimes we don't want to be too in control of our conversation. Oftentimes we don't want to rein it in. We wish to speak our passion, our anger, or our joy in ways that are unfettered by the boundaries of reality or truth. But going down that path, the Torah tells us, becomes more and more harmful as the conspiracy, the collusion, the dishonesty gains steam and leads to consequences that all of us would agree are not appropriate. Shabbat Shalom.